Hello and good morning. My name is Gene Vilpin, and I'm taking the EDU 1107 class. Today I'll be talking about social cognitive, self-concept, and moral development. The social cognitive theory started as the social learning theory, and it was developed in the 1960s by Albert Bandura. The premise was that learning occurs in the social context. Learning involves the reciprocal interaction of the person, environment, and their behavior. The social learning theory later changed to the social cognitive theory and began to consider unique ways that individuals acquire and maintain their behavior while simultaneously considering their social environment. This theory considers a person's past experience of factors in how their behavioral action will occur. As you can see behind you, I have a memory lane street sign there, for those people who like to go past memory lane to, think about what their next decisions may be, right? Past experiences serve as influences, reinforcements, and expectations. These experiences shape whether a person will exhibit a specific behavior, as well as the reasons why a person engages in that behavior. Now, there are several concepts within the social cognitive theory. Um, Now you have reciprocal determinism, right? That's the central concept of the SCT. This refers to the dynamic and reciprocal interaction of an individual with a set of learned experiences, their environment or their external social context, and their responses to stimuli to achieve goals. Now, behavioral capability refers to a person's ability to perform behavior through essential knowledge and skills. People learn from the consequences of their behavior because it also can affect their environment. So this is where people kind of learn that they're able to change the things around them, right? Observational learning suggests that people can observe behaviors conducted by others and then reproduce those actions. The old saying, monkey see, monkey do. If an individual sees a successful demonstration of that specific behavior, they can also model it and do that behavior as well successfully. Okay. Now, the social cognitive theory continued, right? There are reinforcements. Reinforcements they refer to the responses to a person's behavior that may take them, or that may make them stop or continue the behavior. Um, Reinforcements can be intrinsic; it can come from inside, or it can stem from their environment. They can be positive or negative. The concept of the social cognitive theory closely ties to the reciprocal relationship between a person's behavior and their environment. Expectations, right? Expectations are the anticipated outcomes of a person's behavior, right? As you guys can see behind the words here, I have some sticky notes connected to the wall. A lot of people like to put their expectations of themselves on the wall, and they like to meet them, right? So, people anticipate the consequences of their actions before engaging in the behavior, and these expected consequences can influence if a person can perform it successfully. Expectations come from previous experiences as well. On the other hand, though, expectancies, which is different from expectations, expectancies are subjective. They focus on the value that's placed on the desired outcome, right? So expectations are more what you're expecting for them to do, and expectancies are more why are they doing it? Like what's the value of the desired outcome? Now, self-efficacy is the level of a person's confidence in his or her ability to successfully do something. Self-efficacy is influenced by a person's known capabilities and other factors like their environment. Okay, so self-concept. Self-concept refers to a general term used to refer to how somebody thinks about, evaluates, or perceives themselves. To be aware of yourself is to have a concept of yourself. Baumeister once said that the individual's belief about himself or herself, including the person's attributes and who and what the self is, right? So I'll say that one more time. The individual's belief about himself or herself, including the person's attributes and what the self is, who and what the self is. Okay. So there are different types of awareness when it comes to self-concept. Okay. So one of the first ones that you experience as a child is the existential self, right? So a child realizes that they exist in a separate entity from others, and that they will continue to exist over time and space, right? Awareness of that existential self can begin as young as 2 to 3 months old. What are your first memories? You know, take a second to think about that. How old do you remember you being for your first memories? What are the first things that you remember seeing, right? Those are some of the first memories that first things that a child doesn't necessarily remember, but they experience. Okay. Um, okay. So the awareness of the existential self arises partly due to the child's relation with the world. A child touching an animal and watching it react, or smiling at a person who smiles back, are an example of existential awareness. Now, B once said in 1992, this is the sense of being separate and distinct from others and the awareness and constancy of the self. All right, to continue, after realizing that he or she exists in a separate experiencing being, a child then becomes aware that he or she is also an object in the world, right? So objects, including people, have properties that can be experienced. So you can experience people, right? And objects experience, well, what you experience would include the object's properties, right? And object's properties include its size, its color, the texture, and so on. A child is becoming aware of himself or herself as an object which can be experienced and has unique characteristics. Okay. Now, as they get older, the self can be put into categories such as age, gender, size, or skill, right? Two of the first categories that children identify with are age and gender, right? And, you know, we kind of put that on them with gender reveals and, you know, the colors that they wear, the toys that we give them, all these things. So they identify with those things. In early childhood, children apply concrete inferences about themselves, like their hair color, height, or favorite things. Later, how a child will describe themselves references more internal psychological traits, comparative observations, and how others perceive them. Okay. Self esteem, right? So I have a picture of some people looking in the mirror. You know, do you have low self esteem? Do you have high self esteem? Think about that. You know, hopefully you have high self esteem, right? And we want all of our students to develop high self esteem. Self esteem is basically it just means how a person feels about themselves, how he or she values themselves, right? Self concept can refer to the general idea that we have of ourselves, but our self esteem refers to particular components of your self concept. So Franken once said that self-concept is perhaps the basis for all motivational behavior, right? It is the self-concept that gives rise to possible selves. It is the possible selves that create the motivation for behavior, right? So your self-concept, you see what you can be, you envision yourself, and it motivates you to do certain things. You can see yourself doing that thing. According to Franken, self-concept is related to self-esteem because people who have good self-esteem have a clearly differentiated self-concept. When people know themselves, they can maximize outcomes because they want to, well, because they know what they can do and what they cannot do. Okay. Now Jean Piaget. All right. Now we're going to get into moral development. Jean Piaget was a very interesting person. He was a Swiss psychologist known for his work on childhood development. Piaget proposed a theory of reasoning where a child progresses from a naive understanding of morality based on their behavior and grows to a more advanced understanding of morality based on his or her intention. Okay, to contrast, moral reason is not sufficient evidence to account for moral behavior in young people. So um, basically, children aren't really using reasoning. They're not really thinking of why. They just kind of do things according to Mr. Piaget. Other factors such as modeling can be accounted for. Some children simply model behaviors that they have seen, like bullying. Okay. Um, Piaget was particularly interested in what a child thinks rather than considering if what they did was right or wrong. He was more interested in the child's moral reasoning. Okay, so a lot of the time we see kids tend to model behavior. They end up doing something that they've seen before and not necessarily think if it's right or wrong. They just saw it before, so they're perpetuating that behavior. Okay. As they get older now, they start thinking about their morals a little bit more because they have more of a moral understanding. Um, Now there are a couple aspects of the issues that a child may deal with as they get older, right? Their understanding of the rules. Um, Also, they may deal with his or her understanding of moral responsibility, right? Because moral responsibility makes a child ponder a couple things, like who's to blame for bad things, right? They also wonder, is the outcome of the behavior that makes an action bad? Like, so is the outcome what makes that action bad? Um, Moral responsibility also questions if there is a difference between wrongdoing on accident or on purpose. So a lot of young children wonder, did he do it by accident? Did he do it on purpose? Was there a malicious intent behind whatever it is that the child may have done that other people may have seen as wrong, right? Um, the child's understanding of justice is also another thing. Certain questions arise in a child's mind, like should a punishment fit that misdeed? Do the guilty always get caught? Okay, I know me personally as a kid, I always thought that the guilty always got caught. I come from a law enforcement household, so a lot of the times, when we're watching certain things, my parents are telling stories. The good guy always wins in the end. I mean, we know that to not always be true in the real world, but as a child, kids tend to think about those things and question those things until they get older. Okay. Piaget found that a child's perception of rules, their moral judgment, and the definition of judgment tended to change as they grew older, right? There are two main types of moral thinking that children go through. He suggested that the two main types of moral thinking are heteronormous morality and autonomous morality. Okay. Um, take a second to think about what those mean. Heteronormous and autonomous, right? So maybe something was put upon it, put upon their morality. Maybe maybe it came from somewhere. Maybe somebody taught them. Maybe think about autonomous morality. What are some things that come with that, right? Autonomous, right? Automatic, right? Something that comes from it's instantaneous, right? It comes from within almost. It's natural, right? Okay, so let's talk about heteronormous morality, also known as moral realism. This is morality imposed from external sources. This stage starts between 5 and 9 years old. Children regard morality as obeying elder people's rules, and those rules are rigid; they cannot be changed. They figure that all rules are made by some type of authority figure, like their parents, their teacher, or maybe even God. Also, children during this stage feel that breaking the rules will lead to imminent justice. So I said that a little bit before. A lot of the times, children who grow up in the church, they feel like if you do a wrongdoing, if you perform a sin, you will automatically, instantaneously be judged by the Lord, right? Here I have, a parent scolding a child. Children are always scared. Ooh, Baba Biba, what's gonna happen, right? And here I have the child in timeout because, a lot of the times, even kids in the classroom around that age, they feel like if they see another kid doing wrong, and that other kid is going to get caught automatically, so it keeps them from doing certain things as well. Okay. Now, autonomous morality, right? Also known as moral relativism. This morality is based on one's own rules, so the rules that come with inside you, right? Around 9 or 10 years old, children recognize that there's no absolute right or wrong, and they feel that morality depends more on intention and not on consequence. So it's a little bit different from earlier, where they thought that they didn't even think about the intention; it was more about the consequence, right? Children are usually egocentric, but because of their fundamental morals start to, kind of change in this stage, they develop the ability to see morals from other people's point of view. Because of this change, children's ideas on why rules come about, moral responsibility, punishment, and judgment become more like adults. So around 9 to 10 years old, they start to think with a little bit more reasoning, according to Piaget, right? Piaget argues that children under 9 do not take motives into account when judging if someone has done wrong, although other research suggests that children develop an understanding of that significance much, much earlier. Some researchers say even a 3-year-old could even distinguish intentions from consequences if the story is delivered appropriately. Okay?